Welcome back, everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's explainer. Look, if you've spent literally any time on social media recently, you know our feeds are just flooded with these bite-sized clips, right? They're all fiercely competing for our absolute most valuable resource, our attention. But how often do we actually stop and think about how these tiny pieces of micro-content are engineered? Well, today, we are putting them right under the microscope. We're going to analyze a specific massive Instagram reel, the exact one we linked in today's focus materials that's been making the rounds in the hustle culture space. It's that clip boldly claiming your traditional savings account is basically a complete scam. So instead of just mindlessly swiping past it like we usually do, we are going to pull it apart. We're going to look at exactly how it functions, from its underlying narrative structure to the hard data driving its viral success.
So what is the actual true message hidden inside this quick 60-second clip? You know, when we're scrolling, our brains process information at absolute lightning speed. We take in the flashy visuals, the captions, that trending audio in the background, and we make a split-second judgment, stay or swipe. And because of that rapid-fire nature, the actual core argument of a video can completely bypass our critical thinking. It slips right past the radar. By slowing down this specific reel, we can strip away all the fast cuts and the surprisingly loud electronic music to uncover the real argument this creator is trying to plant in your head about your personal finances. This is really all about shifting gears from passive consumption to active, deliberate learning.
Okay. To really understand what's going on in this video, we've got to isolate its anchor. In this creator, they do not waste time. They hit us right out of the gate with an incredibly bold thesis. They say, your savings account is designed to keep you broke. Leveraging debt is the only way to real wealth. Just pause on that absolute statement for a second. In the world of micro-content, creators just don't have time for long, boring introductions. They have to hit you with something totally polarizing within the very first 3 seconds. That single explosive quote acts as the thesis for the entire 60 seconds that follow. Every single visual, every audio cue coming after that point is perfectly, strategically designed to back up that one highly controversial claim.
Now, a 60-second reel might feel super spontaneous, right? Like maybe it was filmed totally off the cuff from the driver's seat of a suspiciously rented sports car. But make no mistake, it is highly structured. Let's look at how this builds chronologically. Right at 0 seconds, boom, we get that crazy hook we just talked about. Fast forward to the 15-second mark, and the creator introduces a relatable pain point, bringing up how inflation is just eating away at your bank balance. Then, right in the middle at 30 seconds, there's the pivot. The tone completely shifts from agitating all your financial anxiety to suddenly introducing their unique solution, taking out high-interest personal loans to invest. Crazy, right? By 45 seconds, rapid-fire screenshots of supposed portfolio returns flash across the screen to build up their authority. And finally, right at the minute mark, we get hit with the real goal, the call to action to buy their coaching program. This isn't just a random rant, guys. It is a meticulously crafted narrative arc, compressed into exactly 1 minute.
Before we go any further, we absolutely have to define the core cultural trend that makes a video like this so effective. The underlying concept here is something media theorists call algorithmic authority. Simply put, it's this wild phenomenon where a viewer implicitly trusts a creator's message. And we don't trust them because they've displayed verified, real-world credentials like a degree in finance or a certified planner designation. No, we trust them because the algorithm has rewarded their video with millions of views and likes. That massive engagement literally acts as a substitute for traditional expertise. Understanding this is so crucial because it perfectly explains why a tiny, brief clip can hold so much persuasive power over an audience without actually needing to cite a single reputable source.
What's really fascinating here is the massive gap between the pure theory of algorithmic authority and how it's practically weaponized in this reel. In theory, viewers passively hand over their trust just based on high view counts. But in reality, this creator isn't just sitting back crossing their fingers for algorithmic love. They are actively manufacturing it. By leading with an insanely inflammatory financial claim, wearing a sharp designer suit, and projecting absolute unwavering certainty, they are designing the content specifically to trigger shares and angry comments. They are totally gaming the platforms designed to artificially validate their own provocative claim. They're essentially printing their own credentials in real time.
Let's systematically test the creator's argument by comparing their claim directly to reality. The reel presents this issue as a strict black and white rule. Saving is for losers and debt is for winners. And look, social media algorithms absolutely love strong, polarizing statements like that because they drive massive engagement. But the objective reality of personal finance? It is highly, highly nuanced. Leveraging debt carries immense risk. It depends entirely on fluctuating interest rates, and it varies wildly based on a person's individual financial safety net. Now, our goal with this explainer isn't to give you financial advice. It's to clearly illustrate how micro-content inherently requires stripping away all that essential nuance just to fit a strict time limit. And that severely distorts a viewer's understanding of a very complex subject.
All of this careful strategy leads up to one truly staggering number, 4.8 million. Yep, as of mid-July 2026, nearly 5 million people have watched this single 60-second clip. So why does that actually matter? Because a piece of media reaching nearly 5 million people in a matter of days is a massive dissemination of information. When a claim, especially one telling people to go out and take massive loans, reaches that kind of volume, it ceases to be just a random internet video. It shapes actual conversations, it influences real-world behaviors, and it sets potentially dangerous trends. The sheer scale of this audience demands that we take the content seriously and look at it with a critical eye.
But it gets even more interesting when we peel back the layers on that 4.8 million. A super surprising pattern emerges from the macro-level data. Roughly 85% of that massive audience is consuming the content completely passively. These are people who watched it while mindlessly scrolling but took zero further action. Only about 15% represents active engagement, stuff like comments, saves, or shares. So what does this tell us? It means the vast majority of the audience is just absorbing this potentially risky financial advice passively. They're likely never even stopping to critically evaluate the claims being thrown at them. And honestly, that makes the creator's structured, emotionally manipulative narrative all the more effective at bypassing our logical filters.
We can actually break this entire persuasive formula down into 4 very distinct steps. Let's walk through it. Step 1. They completely disorient the viewer with a fast visual of wealth and a controversial hook attacking traditional savings. Step 2. They establish a false dichotomy. They make you feel like you literally only have 2 choices. You must choose between being a broke saver or a wealthy debt leverager, no in between. Step 3. They position themselves as the sole enlightened guide who holds the secret knowledge to navigate this broken system. And finally, Step 4. They deliver their totally oversimplified solution, which, very conveniently, involves buying into their exclusive paid community. When you lay the logic out like this, you really see the underlying architecture. It is a highly effective trap, even if the financial logic totally falls apart once you put it under a microscope.
So when we zoom out from this single clip, a much bigger picture emerges. What are the macro takeaways we can extract from this? First off, the structure we just analyzed absolutely proves that these platforms inherently prioritize viewer retention over factual accuracy. Outrage simply keeps you watching longer than nuance ever could. Second, because we see hundreds of these types of videos every single day, the sheer repetition of this confident, pseudo-expert format slowly builds a false sense of truth across society. And third, and I think this is the absolute most important takeaway for you today, active viewing requires conscious effort. When you actually understand the underlying mechanics of how a reel is built, you instantly insulate yourself against being passively influenced. You completely regain control over your own attention.
Which brings us right to our final provocative thought for today. After completely tearing down the architecture, the internal logic, and the hard data behind just one 60-second clip, the bigger question we have to ask is this: how does this change the way you'll scroll today? Seriously, the very next time an app tries to capture your mind with a super flashy edit or some wild, absolute claim, I challenge you to look past the surface. Look for the structure we talked about today. Ask yourself, what are they actually trying to sell you? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those tough questions, and I'll see you in the next one.